So, I've stumbled upon some really creepy Craigslist stories that I just have to share with you. I mean, we all know you can find some weird stuff on Craigslist, right? But these tales are on a whole other level. They're a bit scary, totally unexpected, and they really make you think twice about meeting up with strangers from the internet. I'm pretty new to this whole thing, and honestly, I had no idea stuff like this could happen. So, let's dive in and see just how strange and eerie Craigslist encounters can get. Story 1: Static Shadows. It's Saturday again, and that predictable uncertainty washes over me like a cold, uninvited wave. The day was carved out for a simple Craigslist transaction, a straightforward exchange. I was supposed to meet a guy about an old TV set in an abandoned parking lot on the edge of town. But as the hour drew closer, I felt that familiar tug of war between heart and mind, neither really leading me. Since my ex left me, my world has been a blurry mess of floating aimlessly. The threads of old hobbies, like finding and flipping antique electronics, barely holding me together. There's a hollow echo in the afternoon silence, matched only by the static of my thoughts. A constant reminder of a relationship that fizzled out like a dying signal on an old television screen. I arrived at the parking lot, the sky a slate gray, the air heavy with the threat of rain. I parked beside the only other vehicle there, a rusted truck that seemed as forgotten by time as the place itself. The man waiting was a silhouette against the fading light, his identity hidden beneath a ski mask. The mask should have been my cue to drive away, but desperation, or perhaps the lingering grip of my former life, kept my feet rooted. He gestured to the back of his truck, where the TV, a bulky, ancient model with rabbit ears, sat imposingly. Something about the set was off. It seemed to hum with an energy that wasn't quite right, a low, static buzz that made the hairs on my neck stand on edge. "We agreed on $50, right?" His voice was muffled, but the menace in it was clear. Nodding, I handed over the cash, eager to conclude the deal. As he counted the money, I glanced at the TV screen. For a moment, I swore it flickered under its dust-coated screen, an impossible occurrence given it wasn't plugged in. I blinked away the illusion, attributing it to the unsettling atmosphere and my frayed nerves. "Plug it in when you get home. It'll work," he said, pushing the television toward me with an urgency that made me uneasy. The drive home was a blur of anxious thoughts, reflections on the desperate turns my life had taken. At home, despite my better judgment, I plugged in the television, the echo of the man's words in my head as the screen sputtered to life. The static cleared, and for a heartbeat, I saw a face on the screen, a face contorted with sorrow, a face too much like my own on those long nights spent crying in the bathroom. The screen flickered, and the face changed, morphing into a sinister, twisted version of my ex, his eyes hollow, his expression one of deep regret and something darker. I stumbled back, heart pounding, the room chilled, and a voice, soft yet clear, whispered from the speakers, "Move forward, move forward, move forward." It wasn't just the TV. It was as if the very air around me urged me on, a cold breath against my ear. In a panic, I unplugged the TV, but the screen remained lit, his face shifting, changing into every person I'd ever hurt, ever loved, ever left behind. Each visage was accompanied by whispers of past conversations, echoing the unresolved conflicts and unspoken words between us. It wasn't just a TV. It was a vessel, a haunted archive of all the things I was trying to escape, forcing me to confront them, to relive the pain, the loneliness, and the fear. Was this really happening? Am I losing my mind? Terrified, I dragged the TV outside, leaving it on the curb under the watchful eyes of the night. Back inside, my heart a tumult of emotions. I knew this wasn't the end. The journey was just beginning, a path into the unknown, shadowed by the static memories of a life once lived, urging me to reinvent, to rediscover, to reclaim. As the whispers faded into the night, a resolve settled over me. I must move forward, not just in space, but in spirit. I'm grateful for life, for even in its darkest static, there lies a tremulous beauty, waiting to be tuned to the right frequency. Story 2: The Melody of Deceit. Ever since Laura left, nights have become long shadows hanging over my days. I guess that's why I found myself scrolling through Craigslist late one night, a whim of loneliness pushing me to fill the silence of the apartment. My Yorkie, Trooster Booster, padded softly by, pausing occasionally to mark his territory in the least convenient places. I was looking for something, anything, to distract me from the ache of empty evenings and the cold side of the bed. I stumbled upon an ad for a car, a Honda Accord, priced at just $2,900. It was perfect for driving out to the senior living facility, where I'd been planning to volunteer. I thought helping others might ease the heaviness of my heart. The seller's story was wrapped in the melancholy of their own broken dreams. A car caught up in the aftermath of a divorce, sitting idle in a New Jersey shipping yard. The seller had relocated to Seville, Spain, they explained, and they were desperate to sell. The transaction was to be handled by a Gary Doyle, an agent for eBay Motors, they said. It sounded like a lifeline, a way to move forward. I contacted the seller, a voice from across the ocean, soothing yet distant. Gary's tone was professional, laced with the kindness of a seasoned salesperson. He instructed me to transfer $1,000 for insurance, promising that it would safeguard the car during its transatlantic journey to my doorstep. Eager for some semblance of new beginnings, I complied. Days turned into restless nights, and the car, much like the closure I sought from Laura, remained a promise unfulfilled. Trooster's restless whines mirrored my own unease. The car should have arrived. Doubts crept into my mind like the chill of winter seeping through underheated rooms. I reached out to Gary, but his assurances became sparse, his emails infused with delays and vague excuses. 40 days, they told me when I demanded a refund. 40 days in which my anxiety bloomed like a toxic flower. I couldn't wait. I contacted eBay Motors directly, the tremble in my voice betraying my dwindling hope. The revelation was a cold splash of reality. "It's a scam," the customer service agent told me, the words echoing in the empty spaces of my apartment. There was no Gary Doyle, no insurance, no car waiting in any New Jersey yard, just shadows preying on the vulnerable, on those like me, trying to reconstruct a shattered life. I hung up the phone, feeling the weight of betrayal settling on my shoulders. Trooster nudged my hand with his nose, his small eyes filled with a worry that mirrored my own. In the silence that followed, the apartment felt more desolate than ever, a cavern of broken trust and stolen dreams. I thought about the seniors I had hoped to help, about the stories they would have told, the laughter we could have shared. Instead, I was here, ensnared in a web woven by my own desperation and trust. As I reported the scam to the authorities, I realized that this was another loss, another fracture in the already cracked facade of my life. Yet, as I filled out the forms, Trooster's persistent presence by my side reminded me of the resilience of those who are broken but still kind. Maybe, just maybe, this was the push I needed to truly start anew, to find my way out of the shadows cast by lost loves and shattered trusts. I needed to wake up, to walk through the hallways of my life, not as a prisoner of past pains, but as a seeker of new light. Story 3: The Cold Connection. It was a biting February evening in 2011, and the city had a way of making every shadow under the streetlights seem longer, every whisper of wind sound like a warning. I had been scouring Craigslist for weeks in search of a deal on an iPhone. My old one had met an unfortunate end against the pavement, a casualty of slippery winter gloves. When I stumbled upon an ad offering one for just $500, it seemed too good to pass up. The seller's name was Mark, or so his email claimed. We exchanged messages, and his tone was friendly, almost too friendly, overly eager to seal the deal. He suggested we meet near an old warehouse on the edge of town, an area less frequented by the usual downtown crowd. In hindsight, the location should have raised red flags, but the lure of the deal clouded my judgment. I arrived at the meeting spot early, the chill seeping through my coat as I paced back and forth, trying to keep warm. The area was poorly lit, surrounded by abandoned buildings that cast eerie silhouettes against the night sky. A cold dread began to crawl up my spine, but I brushed it aside, chalking it up to the unsettling surroundings. Mark was late. Each minute stretched out like a taut wire, and the murmur of the distant city seemed to mock my growing apprehension. When he finally did show up, he was nothing like I had pictured. Tall, cloaked in a heavy, dark coat, his face partially obscured by the hood, he moved with a disquieting smoothness. "Got the cash?" he asked, his voice a harsh whisper that seemed to scrape against the cold air. I nodded, my hand trembling slightly as I pulled out the envelope of money. That's when I saw the glint of metal, the unmistakable outline of a pistol in his hand. My heart plummeted, my throat tightening with fear. "This is how it's gonna go," he hissed, stepping closer. "You give me that cash, and you get to walk away. Understand?" Powerless, I handed over the envelope, the weight of my own naivety crushing me. He snatched the money and fled into the darkness, leaving me standing alone, the cold now seeping into my bones. But the story doesn't end there. Haunted by the encounter, I couldn't let it go. I reported the robbery, but the police found no trace of Mark. No leads, no further incidents matching his description. A ghost in the night. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than a simple Craigslist scam. Something about the way he moved, the calculated coldness of his approach. It felt ritualistic, almost ceremonial. Months passed, but the shadows never left. I started seeing figures darting in the periphery of my vision, fleeting glimpses of dark coats and gleaming metal in the corners of rooms. The sound of whispers filled my nights, whispers that seemed to echo Mark's harsh, scraping tones. I began diving deeper, researching, uncovering layers of similar unsolved Craigslist encounters, each more sinister than the last. What if Mark was not just a man, but a harbinger, a part of something far more horrifying? Each ad, a trap not just for robbery, but to instill terror, to feed on it. And so I write this as a warning. Beware the bargains that seem too good to be true, for they might cost far more than money. They might just cost your peace of mind, pulling you into a nightmare that clings long after the cold has left your bones.